This is Kristen Platts with My Ag Life, and we're out in Chowchilla today at an almond variety field day. We're with Phoebe Gordon, and she's with UCCE.
I'm one of the orchard systems advisors for Madera Merced County, so more Madera based. And so I am the lead PI, principal investigator for the third generation of the regional almond variety trial, and I collect data on the Chowchilla location.
And so you passed a list out today at this field day where growers walked around an orchard for quite a while. It's a big block, I think. I think there were 30 varieties on that trial. Can you just go through a little bit of history about this trial and on this site, and maybe a few of the highest performers and even a couple of the lower performers if you want to mention them?
I've already forgotten the lower performers, but so we started out, the trial was planted in 2014. Actually, before I started this position, I started in 2017. And we've been evaluating 30 different almond varieties, and we're looking for kind of the big things, partially for yield, but a lot of what we do in these trials, because we have so many varieties, we only plant 12 trees in a block that's replicated a couple of times across the site. A lot of what we're looking for is some of the bad characteristics that make something not really viable for commercial production. So in that time between when it was planted in 2014 and now, we've dropped a little over half of the varieties, some for really low yield, some because the nuts wouldn't come off the trees, some because they're really susceptible to hull rot, or maybe they have, like for one variety, some really unique nuts, but they're not that great of a yielder. It'll be for people who really want to grow a certain kind of tree.
I thought it was interesting. You said there were a few trees that we walked by and you talked about, you're like, I didn't think this one was going to be in the trial. And year after year, it keeps surprising you. What are some of the things that keep surprising you about some of these varieties? And do you recall some of those names?
Yeah, that's Durango. Yeah, it's sometimes, especially like this is a closely planted trial. And so sometimes it's literally just, you don't see the nuts until you shake them off at harvest and you're surprised at how many are there. We're hoping for the ultimate goal of these trials is to try to find ideally a self-compatible variety with nonpareil quality and the lack of disease and pest issues that nonpareil has. So despite a lot of effort going into breeding, nonpareil is still across the board the best performing variety in the variety trial. We also have some other really high yielders like UCD 1820, but it also has a lot of doubles. Y11790-103, self-compatible, self-fertile, no big pest or disease issues. And then, Booth is another high-yielding variety, but also has a lot of doubles in it. So those are some of the things that we're looking for. And then, yes, in the early ones that we dropped, like I said, like one of them, like you can pull the nut off the tree and like the entire peduncle and sometimes a spur comes off with the nut. It doesn't really separate. Those are some of the things that you may not necessarily see in the breeding block and once you take them out into commercial production.
Another thing you just mentioned that I'm glad you mentioned was self-fertile and self-compatible.
So I think self-compatible is when they're species that evolved to what we call outcross, which is basically exchange pollen with a different organism. Some have evolved the ability that if they have some pollen that's too closely related to it, the fruit won't actually set fruit, or the flower won't set fruit, I should say. And that's to really try to make sure that you're getting a lot of genetic mixing. And so almond is that, although there have actually been some self-compatible varieties for a while. It's just Independence was the first that was really commercially viable here. There's also self-setting, where the flower can actually pollinate itself. And you still probably want to have bees in these blocks. It's been shown that the yield is higher if you have at least some bees. But we have some that are just self-compatible, and we have some that are both self-fertile and self-compatible.
Okay. Just to wrap this up, what are you hoping growers take away from this? And I know you guys have a number of other field days coming up. We'll hopefully advertise also. But who else should be taking away things from this? Not just growers. I know you talked about some hullers and shellers.
Yeah. So a lot of what these trials are is, again, to really identify things that are just not ready for commercial production. A lot of the UC Davis varieties that were put in this variety trial are trying to introduce new genetic diversity into the almond line because almonds that we grow here are actually very closely related to one another, which is really bad because if you have something that comes through, like a disease, that puts your industry at high risk. Although, unfortunately, some of them just turn out to not be that great in commercial production. So we are trying to find some good yielders that have very few problems. And so what we're hoping is that some folks who are really excited to try new things, to be part of that research process to plant some of these in their entire blocks on their own so we can really see how things do. Because one big limitation, I'm not asking our grower cooperator to do 30 different harvests. Something might sit on the tree for a little while before it's harvested. So we're really hoping that someone's going to take some of these top performers plant them out. And then we actually have a new generation too that was planted about 2.5 years ago. And some of the top yielders and some new varieties are put in that one as well.
And I think I hear at these events a lot is that it takes grower cooperation to make the industry successful. So you guys are always looking for people to go into these trials with you, I believe.
Absolutely. Research, like we do these variety trials, but we don't know if a variety is truly successful until people actually take it and start planting it. We're just able to get some basic information to keep that process moving along.
And when is this study going to be out? I think you said like January 2026. You might have the results.
Oh, we produce annual reports, and then so they're due in January. So that's when they're usually posted. So the results from last year are already available. And then, we'll be putting 2025 results out in early 2026.